Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to talk about this simple chat app that I created. Even though it's a very basic project, I think it will give you ideas to create a very big chat app if you want to. I'm not using any socket IO or any backend, typically React and Redux application, and it is multi-tab chat application. Let me show you how the app looks like, and then I will take you through the code and explain to you all the pieces of the code. This is how the interface looks like. You can see that I have 3 tabs open here. All the messages that are going to be sent are synced across these tabs. When you start, this is the login page you are going to see, but once you log in, you are going to see this page with your username up here. This is more like a group chat, so anyone who logs in joins the chat and can post messages and see messages being posted by other users. For example, here, anyone here, I can send it, and because I am sending it, I see it like this. If another user logs in, for example, when you enter a username, it is going to check if this user exists. If it exists, it is going to use your previous credentials. Just a simple login, right? No password or anything like that. So you enter a username and then you can join the chat. Once you join the chat, you see the previous messages posted by other users in the chat. You see your name here. You can also post a message in the chat as well. So this message, I can post it. And then once I post it, you see that the user here, which is this first user, also sees the chat. So the data is synced across the tabs. I can now respond from here. And then this person also sees it. I would say, okay. Cool. When the next person also joins, I can log in with a username. Right away, the user is also able to see like the previous chats sent by the previous users. Can also post a message like post this one, and then right away all the users also see the chats posted by other users. As many users as you want can join this chat. Whenever a message is posted, you would see. You would also notice that there is a little bit of styling going on here, because if you are a user who posted the message, you see it with your name, and then the color is blue. When it is other users, it is this white with this black text. Another cool thing which is going on here is that when you post a message, it actually scrolls down to the last message you posted. For example, I would say that, hey, welcome, and then when I post it, you see that it scrolls to that message for like all the users. I think it's a cool feature I added. It might not be like necessary, but yeah, it's cool to have that just to see like the new messages posted. This is a very basic app, so I mean a lot of things are not considered right now, just the basic stuff that should give you an idea to create like a better chat application. So you could also see that, I mean, even though it's a web page, but then the scroll bar is hidden, even though you can still scroll through the chats to see like the previous chats at the top to look like a real chat app but not a web page, or yeah, the scroll bar showing here to make it look a bit awkward. This is not using socket IO or anything. It is also not using any backend. This is typically client-side application. I used React. I also used Redux toolkit. I used Redux state sync, which is able to help me sync the data across the tabs. I also used Redux persist to be able to like persist the data. So for example, if I refresh this browser, the user is supposed to log in again. So if I log in with my name, I'll see that the data is still there. I'll come and meet like all the chat history being sent already. I am using the Redux persist to also do that. What I'm using to build the UI is Material UI React. That's why you can see this ripple effect and yeah, this kind of effect, right? Let's jump into the code. I think it's going to give you an idea how a real chat application works. so that's like you have a fair knowledge how you can use this idea to create a better chat app if you want. I'm using Visual Studio Code. Using Create React App, you get, I mean, a very basic setup with some of these files here. I've added a components folder, I've added a store, the styles folder, moved the styles I wrote into that folder, and also some few tests that I wrote as well. Let me first show you the packages I added. So Redux persists, Redux state sync, I'm using Redux itself, also using UUID to generate some random IDs, and of course I'm using Material UI as well. And then the icons I'm using are also coming from Material UI icons. All these other packages are coming with Material UI. So I mean, when you go to the Material UI documentation, it will tell you which packages to install. Let me go to index.js file. This is just a basic setup with the root render, and then the app is here. But I'm also using a provider coming from Redux, and then this persist gate is also coming from Redux persist. I'll explain to you in a bit what this is doing. Yeah, these two are coming from Redux, and inside here, this is where all the components actually gets bootstrapped. This is a chat card, and this is the user login. So it is basically checking if the user is logged in, which is just a simple logic checking if this login state is true or false. So when a user logs in, it sets the login to true so that it will log the person in by showing the person the chat card. If I refresh the page, of course it is going back to false because I'm not persisting that. Yeah, you can log in again. Just wanted a simple flow. When you click on login, it's going to do some few things. I mentioned it's going to set this login to true. It is going to check if the user exists by doing this find here. When the user is logging in, we check against the users list if there is a name that the user entered, which is the same as a name in this users list, and then actually log you back in. So it is going to assume you are an existing user and then log you back in again. If the user does not exist, it is going to create a new user by calling this dispatch, which is coming from Redux, which I'm going to show you. If you've used Redux before, you know how dispatch works. I'm just passing this reducer action add user to be able to create a new user. Let's go into store so that I show you the setup in Redux. So first of all, let's go to the slices we have. This is a message slice. So when you post a message, it is adding a message into the state. So basically at the end of the day, you're going to have a list of messages being posted. Each message is going to have a unique ID. It is also going to have the user who posted the message. So if I show you in the test, this is how a message structure will look like. It will have an ID, the message itself, the user ID, and then the username, so that it will actually know the user who posted the message. So it will add the message to the state. I plan of adding this feature by letting a user being able to delete a message he or she sent. Not included this remove message action yet. At the moment, I'm only using the add message. This is all Redux toolkit stuff. So once you set up your reducers, you create your slice using this create slice method coming from Redux toolkit. You just export these actions, right? So add message and remove message actions, and that is what you can actually use when you dispatch an event, or when you call a dispatch, you can pass these actions to it. That is what this is doing. And I'm also exporting the reducer itself by calling messages slice.reducer, and it is the same thing happening in the user slice as well, right? So at the moment we have only one action, add user. There was a remove user which I removed. I forgot to remove the action. It's only add user here. So that is what our slices are doing. You can check out the Redux Toolkit's documentation to learn more about slices, store, middle words. So how are we using the items we are storing in the state? For example, when you want to add a user, we are going to be using this use app dispatch, which is a Redux Toolkit hook. If I go into the hooks, I am calling use dispatch hook and then use selector hook. I'm just assigning it to a new variable just to be able to use these ones instead of this ones. That is what the Redux documentation recommends. It is also for you to be able to write a proper test for some of these things. Use dispatch is going to return the dispatch function you pass the action you want to perform, that is add user. Don't forget, add user is actually coming from the user slice, which we exported here. When you pass the payload, it is going to add it based on the implementation you have here, which is basically going to push the payload you pass into the state. That is what we have here is doing. So adding a new user into the state if the user does not exist, or using the previous user if the user exists. So yeah, these are the components I have. The chat card, which you can see here. I have the user login component, which is this one. Basically, it's just material UI components, text field with some buttons. Not using this one as well. I can clean this one up and also get rid of the imports from here. But the login component only contains some material UI components. It's a card with some card content. So the first one is the login header, which is saying login. Just a text field to be able to enter your username and login, and then a button to click join the chat. I can show you what is inside the header too. It's just a simple text saying simple chat app at the top here. So there's not really a lot going on in there. The next one, which is a chat card, is what is containing almost everything. Yeah, so starting from here, you can see another dispatch here. Right, so basically it is adding a message. So by calling this add message action coming from the messages slice, and then this is how a new message looks like. The ID, the message itself, the user ID, the username, and of course, yeah, the time, which I didn't mention earlier. So it is actually adding a time that the user posted to the message. It constructs the new message, and then it will add the message to the message list in the Redux store. Once a user enters a new message, it will create the message, add it to the store, and then it will be updated in the chat. That is what the post message function is doing. So I'm using the post message function here. When a user clicks on the send icon to post a message, it is going to call this function. That is what this button is doing. When you click on it, it's going to take the message from here. I'm using a hook, that is a use state, to get a value of the text field. So we use the value and then the onChange event to be able to set the value of the message, and then that is what I am actually using in the post message here. When a new message is added, it gets added to the list of messages. So that is what this component is actually picking. It is picking the messages, and inside the card contents, it is displaying the various messages. Basically, that is what we have here. When I go into the messages component as well, it's see that we are using the app selector to be able to get the values from the state. We use the use app selector, and then we are returning the state so that we destructure the messages from the state, because that's what we need here. We map through the messages, and then we use this message component, which is down here, which I'm going to show you in a second. When you're mapping through a list in React, you have to provide this key prop, and then we pass the message item itself. We also pass some user ID prop to identify which user posted the message. A message actually has the user ID. When we pass the logged in user ID to the message, now here we can know that, okay, this ID is the same as this user ID, so this user posted the message. Right, that's basically what the user ID is doing. I mean, this could be stored somewhere just to see like the selected user, but I think, yeah, I wanted to keep things simple. That's why I passed it here. Here I have the message box. Of course, that's the name of the class. And then based on the user ID, I am having some different classes. That is message box right, message box left. That is a class which is doing this kind of styling, right? This and this kind of styling. So if it is you who posted a message, you see your message with this style. If it's a different user who posted a message, you see it's this style, and it will be aligned to the left. Yours will be aligned to the right. That's how generally chat messages looks like. So that is what these classes are doing. It is checking the user who posted the message by checking if the user ID is the same as the user ID that is coming from the message. and then it's giving it a different style, and also if it is not, it is going to give it the default style. Yeah, these are just setting the message, the name of the user who posted the message itself, and then the time. This is the username, the message itself, and then the time. There is this avatar icon attached to like every user, which is this. So if I show you the styles relating to this, it's very basic styles. It's going to start from here. I'm using Flexbox to display like the items. I mean, the interesting part is this part where I change some of the stylings, the message box left, message box right, where some of these things changes. The border radius changes from the default one, so for the left, and then for the right. The message box right actually changes the arrangement of the items, the message items, by setting the flex direction to row reverse, so that we are able to, instead of this, it will bring the user icon here, align self, changing the color for different boxes, changing the background for different boxes as well, and also the text align as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You'd have access to the source code in the description, so yeah, you can clone it, look at the code, and try to see how I implement some of these things, right? I want to talk a bit more on how I am able to persist the data and able to like sync the data across the different tabs that you open. I'll close this and then I'll open the index.js file. You'd see that I am using the Redux state sync here, importing this create state sync middleware, and then init message listener. Right, I'm using this middleware to be able to like sync the states across different tabs. It is an npm package which you can search for and add to your projects. When you use the configure store function, you pass an object. The first property you would pass always is the reducer. You pass the reducer, you also pass the middleware. The middleware could be like an object, it could also be a function, but because we want to pass this custom middleware, we are passing it as a function, and then we pass this get default middleware. When Redux actually creates the store, it comes with some default middlewares, so we concat like our custom middlewares to those middlewares by using the concat on the default get default middleware. That's all what we are doing here. You can check out the Redux toolkits documentation to see everything is stated in there. You can find a lot of information about this in there. This actually is disabling the serializable check. If you don't pass this, there is an error you see in the dev tools. So when you check the documentation, it will tell you to pass this one and set it to false, so that you get rid of those errors you see. This is also blacklisting some actions we don't want to include for this create sync middleware. It is recommended in the documentation as well, so you can check it out. This is basically coming from a constant, so we want to blacklist these two actions. After you add this middleware, the only thing you need to do to be able to sync the states across the tabs is by calling this init message listener and passing the store here. Once you set up the middleware here, you call this and pass the store. Whenever you send a message, it is going to be synced across all tabs you open. So that is how we sync the messages. To be able to persist the data to local storage, we use this. So persist reducer. Persist reducer is going to accept a configuration. I'll click on this. I'll give it a key. I mean, this key can be your own key, so you can change it to whichever key you want. The storage type you specify here is the type of browser storage it is going to use. This is basically going to use the web storage or local storage. If you want to use cookies, you can actually pass cookies instead, or if you want to use sessions, you can pass sessions instead. I think local storage is pretty much good for to keep like the data until the user actually clears it. So that is the first option you pass to this persist reducer function, and then these root reducers are actually our reducers we created, our custom reducers we created. So we use the combine reducers to be able to combine all our reducers, so you can add as many reducers as you want on here, and then you can you can pass the reducer as the second argument for this persist reducer. By default, you can pass a reducer to configure store like this. So this is actually valid, it will work. You can't actually take this one and pass it to the reducer here. This will give you an error. So the second argument is supposed to accept a function, so that's why you use the combine reducers function to combine all your reducers, and then you can now pass the root reducer here instead of the reducer object, and then you would be able to pass the persisted reducer down here. After this, the only thing you need to do when you check index.js, we are using this persist gates. When you put this persist gates there, it is going to delay the rendering of your app UI until your persisted state is actually retrieved and saved into Redux, so that when your app renders, you see the data which you saved to local storage. Here you can pass a loading component, so that if there is a delay, it will actually show maybe loading or something. But I'm passing now here just because it's simple and it loads a bit faster. You just call this persist store, and then you pass the store, which is this store. Let me talk about how I am able to scroll into the view. So I'm just using this scroll into view function on I'm using useRef from React, which is going to reference this div element, right? So I'm passing the ref to this div element. It's going to try to scroll this div into view all the time, anytime the messages list changes, which I'm using the use effect hook to monitor. So anytime it changes, it is going to call this function scroll to button function, and it's basically going to scroll this element into view. The behavior is smooth. You can pass different behavior. This is how you can implement the scroll into view effect. If I demonstrate again, I can log in into this user again. I see that it scrolls into the last chat, right? Yeah, then when I send a message, hello world, see it scrolls for the other two as well, right? It is a very simple chat application, but hopefully it helps you learn different stuff and yeah, get more ideas to create like a real chat application if you are planning to create a chat application. That's everything. You see that there is no use of socket IO, there is no backend involved here. Typical React and Redux packages, which is helping me able to do this, right? You can get a source code in the description, clone it and then go through. You can run it and see this was supposed to be a simple implementation of chat application. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you like, leave your comments below, let me know what you think. You can also suggest some features you think I can add to this chat app. Thank you, see you again in the next video. Bye.